Hi, my name is Ruthie Wood. I'm a teacher candidate with Grand Canyon University. This is for SPD 485 with Jenna Gardner. For the benchmark assignment, I did decide to do the video instead of the PowerPoint or the FAQ because this is a topic that is very important to me. I'm going into my 8th year in education, starting as a special education paraprofessional, then a special education co-teacher. I was an interventionist for 2 years, and this past year I taught second grade general education, primarily to meet some goals within my studies. And next year we'll be transitioning to middle school. Remediation and intervention is something that's super important to me, and I feel is paramount to being a successful teacher. Something that I'm very passionate about is finding the kids who are starting to slip through the cracks before they fall all the way through. And I believe that the best way to do that is with remediation and intervention. So jumping right into this, we're going to be discussing how students who face learning challenges related to literacy often have similar struggles in the core competency areas of math, social studies, and science. And that really is because when we're talking about intervention and remediation in ELA, English Language Arts, that really focuses on communication skills. So it's applicable to all aspects of life, not just English class. And the first step to providing solid instruction is with differentiation in the classroom. Edmentum has a great article on this titled Acceleration versus Remediation versus Intervention. Now, it's important to understand that acceleration and differentiation are not always, but oftentimes used interchangeably when we're talking about education, specifically differentiating lesson materials. When we look at it, the terminology, the definition of acceleration and differentiation, both of those mean a change in pace. And that's what we're doing when we're differentiating instruction for our students is we're changing up how we're structuring either the lesson itself, the method of presentation, or providing them with tools on how they receive it. Differentiation is making sure that every student has what they need to be successful, because in education, what's fair for one is not fair for all, and we need to make sure that we're meeting kids where they're at. Differentiating instruction allows us to change it up as we need to, find gaps on the spot, and fill those gaps with on the spot remediation. And remediation is essentially reteaching concepts that kiddos don't get. Now, if you're doing a lesson and none of the kids get it, like you're looking at them for some confirmation and they're just like deer in headlights, they are not picking up what you're putting down, that's when you need to go back and you need to reteach the lesson. You need to review what you did right, what didn't go right, and you need to adjust and make changes and pivot as a teacher. When there's a handful of kids who aren't getting it, that's when it's time for remediation. That's when you sit down with the kiddos and you teach the same lesson in a different way to hopefully make it make more sense for them. When that doesn't work, when your remediation is unsuccessful, we get into interventions. Now, interventions are small groups of kiddos. Literature is going to say typically between 3 and 6 at a time. In my personal experience, doing intervention for 2 years, the magic group number seems to be about 5 kids. And what we're doing there is we're focusing on one skill at a time, bite by bite. We're going to reinforce one skill, one concept, one area of need, and then move on to the next. To build back up to that remediation where they're getting caught up. And again, it's just providing them the tools that they need to be successful. When we discuss how, as teachers, we can use these skills in different content areas, be it math, science, social studies, physical education, health studies, the arts, music. It's a very broad spectrum. We need to remember that the ELA focus, right, is reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So what skills do we provide for students in language arts that we may not be providing in all the other competency areas? I apologize. One specific research-based tool that we can use here is question answer relationship strategy. Now, Adler has a really good article about this on the Reading Rockets website. It's part of his article, 7 Strategies to Teach Students Text Comprehension. So he gives us a list of, under the, umbrella subheading of question answer relationship strategy, or QAR. He lists 4 subheadings, I guess we would call it: the right there strategy, think and search, author and you, and on your own. While all of these have their own merit, I think the most practical application of this method, the QAR method, is the right there strategy. And what we're doing is we're asking students to find an answer located in a specific place. And it could be as defined and targeted as, line 2, paragraph 3 on page 48. Most of the time, what this is going to look like is, what's the 3rd step of the rock cycle? Well, let's see. Let's skim through. We see first, next, then, finally. I'm guessing we're going to find the 3rd step in the rock process right here. First, next, then. That's number 3. Let's read through this paragraph. And it helps kids kind of target where that information is at without overwhelming their overall experience trying to read through an entire page of scientific jargon related to the rock cycle. They can find it right where they need it. To go on a little bit further than that, when we're embedding remediation strategies into all of the core subject areas, meaning science, social studies, and mathematics, there's specific tools that we can take from our English language arts toolbox, right? Our reading toolbox, and we can apply those. So in science, we can give kids a foursquare when we're working on those big terms and vocabulary, right? Because we need kids to understand the difference between meiosis and mitosis. But it's tricky. Those are similar words, and for kiddos who struggle with comprehension anyways, it's going to be really hard to tell them apart. So we give them the foursquare, right? So they write the word in the middle, and then we do a synonym and an antonym, or a definition and your own words of the definition. And then we draw a picture and we use it in a sentence. This is a great tool to use for science, because when they draw that little picture in the foursquare, it could be a diagram, right? It could be the exact diagram out of the science book. If we're doing, going back to that example of meiosis and mitosis, what better way to understand the difference than having that visual diagram of the cell systems? And it's super important for them to be able to comprehend the difference between the two when they're learning about cells and systems. Social studies, we have a lot of written response, right? So it's a lot of historical documents, a lot of how do you feel, how do you know, explain your logic, explain your thinking. And sentence starters are great for these. There is an article from Wolf. It was a recent article, recently published in 2024. Why can I not remember the name of this? I am so sorry. It's on the Panorama website, and it's aptly titled 5 Research-Based Writing Interventions for your students, or for your MTSS. So the sentence starters is a great way when they have to do an extended response, and for something like social studies or health class even. I can relate to this because I think Thomas Jefferson did this because I would feel this way if somebody came to my home and tried to colonize my neighborhood. Give them the sentence starters. Let them have that step at launchpad, right? That's what a sentence starter is. It's a launchpad. Gives them something solid, foundational, and then they can build off of that. And it takes away a lot of the stress. In math class, something as simple as explain your logic. How did you find this answer? How did you get here? Let the kids do the oral response. Ask them. Don't make them write it out. Ask them, hey, how'd you get that? How'd you get -4 for this equation? So this was that, and this was that, and I did, reverse operations. And one of the biggest benefits as a teacher for doing oral response is you're able to course correct on the spot. Like, hey, I love that you remembered to do reverse operation, but instead of doing it here, we're going to do it over here. So instead of a -4, what is that going to be? And then they're able to either course correct right there and be like, oh yeah, you're right. Or you have the opportunity as a teacher to either do some remediation or see if there's a need for further intervention with that kiddo. For all of these, a really impactful and powerful intervention that we can provide for all students is allowing them to use talk to text or speech translation technology. Every school in the nation right now loves to brag about having one-to-one student tech. That means that most children in most schools in the United States have access to a Chromebook in their classroom. Let them use their Chromebooks. Let them use that talk-to-text application. It doesn't harm you. There is no harm in allowing them to use speech-to-text technology. What you're doing is you're allowing them to explain that they understand something, deeply understand something. You're allowing them to deeply explain how they understand it, why they understand it, why A plus B equals C. And you're allowing them to do it in a way that doesn't add an extra workload. It doesn't add extra burden to whatever they're already dealing with, right? So instead of sitting and physically doing that intensive labor of writing an essay, a paragraph, an extended response, something that we may not consider to be extraordinarily difficult, but for a 6th grader with dyslexia, writing a 5-sentence paragraph is excruciating. Give them that grace, allow them to use that technology. Everybody will be better off for it. When we're looking at the reading and writing assessments that we have access to while we're planning our instruction, while we're planning our remediation and our interventions for math and science and social studies, we should be looking at those reading and writing assessments to see what levels the kids are at, and we can adjust and differentiate our instruction, modify not our expectations, but modify how our kiddos are submitting their comprehension. Right? We want to know that they're understanding it, but we want to understand it in a way that's safe for them. So when we're looking at how to address those assessments for each core competency area in science, it might be that 4-square, right? It might be that 4-square to understand what they're doing. If we could have them do a graphic organizer, we could have them do a diagram. That would be a wonderful way to understand what they know, how confident they are in their content knowledge. And they're still using those skills that we want to see in communication. The reading, the writing, the listening, the speaking. They're just displaying it in a different way. For social studies and math, same ideas. We can do a math assessment and still assess their reading and writing, right? So we give them word problems. And we can give them the tools to do those word problems, right? Highlight the numbers, underline the keywords. What is it asking you to do here? Find the difference between what? So we can help them and help them go through those assessments and find those key terms that we need them to know to be successful to solve that math problem. And in social studies, and I think a lot of people forget just how much reading actually goes into social studies, like how much communication is involved there. Because a lot of it is reading deep, complicated texts, and sometimes in a strange dialect that we're not used to. In a world of Skibbity Ohio's, we're reading, messages from Sojourner Truth, like, ain't I a woman? And there certainly is a disconnect there. But using annotation styles and comprehension tools and making those connections, even like kinesthetically, physically marking, using graphic organizers will be incredibly helpful and impactful for these kiddos who struggle, especially those with disabilities. All in all, we can and should be using the central concepts, structures, and tools of inquiry in all content areas to, number one, determine where these kids are at, where they're struggling, where their strengths are, and then using the knowledge that we've gained to reinforce tools and strategies to help them be successful in the future. I think that's it.